to eat.
Yes, it is.
Not every other day.
I got you. I'm waiting for it to wake up. Oh, woke up.
We're going.
Woke up.
Let's go.
All right, good morning, everybody.
Okay, everyone tell everyone that they're nice to each other. I'm up to everyone.
Today's Daf Tzadi, Ksubas. Anybody else to leave early? We're gonna Mitzvah Shem get to the Mishnah.
All right.
Zaf the Mishnah. Now Mishnah, now Perak, and away we go. A person married, remember, keep yourselves on mute. So Misha Yanasu Ishtei Nashim Umeis Harishayna. So you got to put on mute, or I don't know, someone's there. Yeah. Thank you. I'll unmute me if you mute everyone.
You're fine.
Okay, fine. So Misha Yanasu Ishtei Nashim, a person married to women Umeis Harishayna Kaidemes Lashniya. So if he died and he leaves over two wives. So and even if and also or they die also afterwards. So Harishayna Kaidemes Lashniya, since he married one first, so therefore their ksuba, theirs comes first, right? So
The first one.
That's the first. So Umeis Harishayna Kademis Lashniya. So the first wife, hers is Kademis. The second one, the Yarshei Harishayna Kadim the Yarshei Shniya. And if both women die, then the Yarshim of the first lady, they collect their ksuba before the Yarshim of the second one. Nasa Harishayna Umeisa. If he married a woman and then she died. Nasa Shniya, and then he married his second woman, Umeis, who? And then he died. Okay, so now who is left? Just the second wife is left. So what happens? So this is going to be the case we're discussing today. Make sure you understand it. The Mesu, Shniya, the Yarsha, Kaidin, the Yarshei Harishayna. The second wife, and also even if she died after that he died, her and her Yarshim come before the Yarshei Harishayna. Why is that? Because after the first husband dies,
The husband dies, not the first husband.
excuse me, I'm thinking of it. When the first wife dies, so he still owns his assets, right? He still owns his assets, and therefore, so when he then when he marries another woman and then he dies, so we say the second one, they are due their ksuba, right? Which is like they have to go ahead and collect their ksuba. But the first ones, right? They were yorshim. They were yorshim of the husband, right? And therefore they are coming as yorshim. The second one, they are coming as creditors, right? They are creditors because in that case, right, when the husband dies, so when the husband died, then he has to go ahead and collect, or they have to go ahead and collect their mother's ksuba. So therefore, the second one, they are creditors lagabe his estate, and the first ones are yorshim. And we know that creditors come before the yorshim. So therefore, the creditors, the shniya, the yarsha, kaitin, and the yarsha arishayna. So that was the second case of the Mishnah, and we'll discuss it pretty soon on a base. But now the first case, when a man married two women and then he dies, so we say the first one goes ahead. So Mitani Harishayna Kademis Lashniya, by the fact it says.
What assets are we talking about that they inherit? The Nixay to Barzo? Or the Nixay Malug?
Any assets.
We're talking about the husbands?
They're not getting the Lana or Masayan, that only goes to the woman.
Who? Which case?
The Yorshim.
Which case are you talking about? And the first case or second case?
The second case.
The second case, okay. So the second ones, they collect their mother's ksuba. Then the other ones.
They're collecting the mana or Masayim.
They collect, that's the ksuba. That's the ksuba we're talking about. And then the other assets, right, were inherited, right, by the the inheritance goes to the first one.
Okay, we gotta go.
Now, Mitani Harishana Kademas the Shnia, but the fact that says the Rishana Kademas the Shnia, like Tani Harishana Yesh, Harishana Yesh of Shnia Ema, but the fact that says they come first, and it doesn't say the first one's get and the second one's done, Michal, the Kadma Shnia, but so let's learn from here that if the second ones go ahead and be typeface out of order, then we don't remove it from them. And Shmami, now let's learn from here. So if you have creditors and there's earlier creditor, later creditors, normally the earlier ones goes first. If the latter ones comes and takes, even though they went out of order, they should go ahead and be able to keep it. So let's learn from here. So Gemara says no. Really doesn't work. Well, my kodemus, what does it mean that says kodemus? It means legabre. Right, Katani. It means complete. In other words, Kodemus means they're the only ones who get. Ketanam's in another Mishnah, Ben Kadin Labas. When it comes to inheritance, the son is before a daughter. It doesn't mean that he takes precedence. It means the son inherits and the daughter doesn't. So over here, the word Kadin was used similarly. Ikadam of a different version. Like Tani Keep Mashniya V'Tavs in Matsim V'Yada. But the fact it doesn't say in our Mishnah that if the second one goes ahead and takes it, the ksuba before the first one, that we don't remove from her michlal dikadna shnia v'tafsa mafkina mina, right? But the fact it doesn't say that we don't remove it from her must be that if she does go ahead and takes it, then we would remove it from her. So shmamina, let's learn from here the opposite. Bal chayv meuchar shekada megava mashagava loigava. Right, that if a bal chayv who comes second, right, then she tries to go ahead and collect, right? So that what she took, it does not work. So Gemara says no. Really, that which she went ahead and seized, even if she went out of order, she gets to keep it. And I did the Tana Shnia v'Yersha Kaidman. And since over there we wrote that the Shnia v'Yersha Kaidman the Yersha Rishona. So since we wrote right earlier that it says that the second one is before the Yersha Harishona. So Tana Rishona Kaidman l'Shnia. So over here it says Kaidemes l'Shnia, but it doesn't just mean kodemus, but rather perhaps it could mean that we wouldn't that we would go ahead and remove it if she goes ahead and tries to take it. So therefore, both ways you learn it, you can't necessarily make an inference as to if a Baal Chayv goes ahead and tries to collect out of order. Fine. Now let's go to the second case. So,
If there's enough money, I mean,
right.
It doesn't make a difference.
So right. So
exactly.
Exactly. So we're soon going to see that there's a whole situation of the ksuvas ben dichrin, right? Which we're about to get to the second case. And over here, because normally that each one collects their monies, the mother's ksuba, right? That's what they the mother was allowed to ksuba, right? And since she died, so that her Yorsha would get her ksuba, and everything else is then divided amongst all of his kids. Halachically, in other words, the boys will get and the girls not. So, right, we're talking about a case where there's not enough. So, kaidman means there's not enough to seize it. Thank you. Now, so the second case. Now we're going to go into the second case. We didn't really explain it so much in the Mishnah, but so he married a woman and then she died. And then he married a second woman and then he died. Right, and then he died. So the second wife, right? So since she's remaining alive. She, l'chayra, right, should be able to collect her ksuba before any type of Yerusha is given out. So Shmamina Talas. So Shmamina, first of all, it's under Achas Bechai, Achas B'Maiso, Yesh Lahem, Ksuvas B'Nedikrit. Let's learn from here that the one, if one is alive and one is dead, so there is Ksuvas B'Nedikrit. What do you mean? Now, the Ksuvas B'Nedikrit is a case where it was instituted that a woman brings she brings assets into the marriage, but a father would be hesitant to send his to put the real estate in his to his daughter who's going to go ahead and marry somebody else, because what's going to happen that perhaps they'll have other kids, and therefore that land will fall into someone else's family. So they instituted that her estate, right, is only inherited by her sons, by nobody else's sons. So therefore, in this case, so we see over there in this case that there is a yesh and ksuvas ben dichrin, right? That they do go ahead and get that. And we're not concerned about fighting. In other words, right here. So we said that the second ones get the ksuba, right? But the first ones, right, after they collect the ksuba, now the rest of the land should be divided by all of his children, right? Let's say he has, each woman has a son. It should be divided by 2 sons. But if the first one brought land into the marriage, so then that son, they don't go ahead and divide it together in Yerusha. Rather, that son from the first wife goes ahead and gets it all. He gets his ksubas ben different. And we're not concerned that they're going to go ahead and have a dispute because the amount he's getting is much larger than the ksuba. So but if there's enough to go ahead and pay out the ksuba to the second wife, and then right the children of the first wife, they go ahead and be able to take the ksubas different, and we don't say that you go ahead and you split it. Now, then normally we have an issue. We have an issue that the Torah says divide the estate amongst the heirs. If everything over here, they're able to go ahead and get the ksubas ben different. Excuse me, the second wife gets her ksuba, right? The 200 zudas.
Right.
And then everything else is exactly the amount of the ksubas ben different, right? Of what it was brought by the first wife. And therefore that will go to her kids. Now, we don't have anything but Torah's Yerusha. There's nothing to fulfill the commandment of the Torah guidelines of dividing amongst the kids. So what might you think? You might think, since we're not dividing anything halachically, maybe you don't get ksubas ben different, and we're going to go ahead and split up that land, and therefore the children from the first wife don't get the ksubas ben different. Rather, all the estate is divided after the ksubas is collected by the second one. All the estate is divided amongst all of his sons. So we say in this case, so now the halakha is, as long as there's a dinar worth that's divided amongst the heirs, so therefore that qualifies as a Yerusha that's given out. So let's say all you have here is the ksuba, and the ksuba's been different. The ksuba of the second one, and the ksuba's been different of the first one. So that, the fact that there's a ksuba to the first one, that is considered to be the meiser dinar, the extra amount, right, that is given out. And therefore, so we learn from over here, Shmami no ksuvas nasu meiser lechaverta. Mimai from what me like Tani. By the fact it doesn't say im yesham meiser dinar. You only give out the ksuvas been different if there's at least a dinar more than the ksuvas been different, so you can divide amongst the others. But nevertheless, we don't say that. So therefore, it must be that the fact that one gets the ksuba and the other one gets ksuvas different, therefore you still give out the ksuvas been different. Shmami no. In the third case, ksuvas been different like tarvim mishivati. You don't go ahead and take something which is already encumbered, right? Why? Because if you hold that something is encumbered, something has a lien on it, i.e., let's say the estate, the ksuba to the second wife, they could say, you don't even get your ksuba because we inherited before, because we have a lien. The ksuba's been different from before you collect your ksuba. But we don't say that. So it must be the ksuba has been different. You don't take the meshubah, and this is meshubah to the second ksuba. However, two of these proofs are deflected. So maybe there is no ksuba ben different. Well, my kaiden, what does it mean that kaiden says, all right, that they come first? The second ones come first. That says lanachlok, right? It means for the inheritance. So if that's the case, right? So why does it say Yorshe? No, it's only they go ahead and they get it to the so kaidmin means only they have the priority of the first ones. So it says if that's the case, why does it say Yorshe Rishona? Right? If they're not getting the ksuba, so I detana shnia the Yorsha, taninam the Yorshe Rishona. So therefore it says the second one and her Yorshin. So therefore it also says the first one, but really maybe the first one wouldn't be able to go ahead and collect the ksubas ben different. And it was kamar to ksuba nasis meiser lechaverta. Now what you said that you don't need any overage, the ksuba itself is considered to be the overage. So normally the ksuba only, if it was only ksuba, there would have been ksubas been different. But over here happens to be a case where there's other assets and a situation where there is a Maisar dinar, and therefore there is a ksubas ben dichrin, but it's not a proof as to if there's a ksubas ben dichrin if there was no Maisar dinar. Fine. Now, the achas, the chayev, the achas, the Maisar tonight. So machlokes tonight. The Tanya the Nebraisa Mesu achas, the chayev, the achas, the Maisar. Right? If one died while he was alive, i.e., the first wife, then one died when he was dead. In other words, he died before her. So the first kids can go ahead and say the second ones. Go ahead, take your ksuba and get out of here because everything else is like ksuba's been different. And Rabbi Kiva Imer, no, kfar kovtza nachla mifnei bnei harishayna, right? They already inherited for the first one by the ksuba different lifnei bnei hashniya. And therefore, they can basically tell the second ones that we already inherited, and therefore you wouldn't be able to go ahead. So my labo kamifli. So this is not the case. That the first one holds that the machlokes is that one of them holds that the Tanakh holds that there is a ksuvas ben dichrin, right? Umar Sober. And then Rabbi Kiva would say the achas b'chai v'achas b'maisa ain't then ksuvas ben dichrin. They don't get the ksuvas ben dichrin. So I'm a rabbi. So it's a machlokes tonight. So I'm a rabbi. No, actually, the rabbanon the Bei Rav, the Yasvi, the Kamri. So we found the rabbanon of the Bei the Yeshiva of Rav. They were sitting and learning. The kuliyam achas b'chai v'achas b'maisa yeshik ksuvas dichrin. Everyone holds that in this case, achas right b'chai v'achas b'maisa, that the second ones collect the ksuba, and then the first ones are the Yerush and Egdek Dichrin. Right? And over here, they're discussing the machlekes over here is as to whether if there's exact amount to pay out the ksuba, right? And then the ksuba has been different, right? So in the case, let's say it's 200, and the estate that was brought in by the first mother was 1,000 zuz. And therefore, 200 goes to the second kids, and the 1,000 zuz, which is the exact amount, goes to ksubs different. So the kuliyam. So over here, yesh ksubs different. So over here, since there's more than 1,000, there's 200. So therefore, they can go ahead and gather ksubs different. And so too about chov, right? So let's say there's an estate, and you want to be able to go ahead and divide it, but if they're able to take it, you have to have an extra. So let's say the extra there was a debt. So if that debt would be considered just like a ksuba as a debt, so too the debt is considered to be actually, even though they're actually not dividing the debt because the debt has to be paid out, that's considered to be a yerusha that they collected, and then therefore they paid out. So Mar Savar Ksuba Nasa Maisa Chaverta. So the Tanakh says there is a Ksuba Benich in this case because the Ksuba is made Chaverta more than the Bachot. Or Mar Savar, and then the second Peshito, Rabbi Kiva would say, Eng Ksuba Nasa Maisa Chaverta. The second one is not considered to be the overage for the Ksuba Benich, and therefore more than the Bachot, right? And therefore the Bachot, and therefore Rabbi Kiva would say that they do not go ahead and gather the Ksuba Benich. And I would say, when it comes to Balcha, that could be the extra. However, or you could say that they argue, right, that only in the Ksuba, not the case of the Balcha. But we see over here that that's the case. So Maskal Rabbi Yosef, Ihachi, Rabbi Kiva, Aimer Kfar Kafza Nachla. So what does Rabbi Kiva mean, right? That the sons of the first one already got, right, the estate, and therefore it's not Ksuba been different, right? If you're saying the whole machlekes over here between Rabbi Kiva and Tanakama is that whether you go ahead and pay it out, right? Whether there's a ma'aser din or not, it should have said it. Im yesham ma'aser din if that's the nekus machlekes. So Rabbi Yosef, ba'achas b'chai ba'achas b'ma'aser kameflig. It must be that is the machlekes. Hani tonight, and this perhaps could be the same machlokes as another machlokes with the Tanakh and Rabbi Shimon. The Tanya with an Araisa, Nasas Rishon Mesa. He went ahead and he married a woman, and then she died. Now says Ashniya, and then he married another woman, and then he died. Mesu. And then they come after the night thing, right? The first one, the second ones go ahead and take their mother's ksuba, right? And as they get the mother's ksubas, and the ksubas ben dichrin goes to, right? The others would take it. And Rav Shimon Aimer, im yesham meiser dinar, ela nighting ksuba siman, ela nighting ksuba siman. If there is an extra dinar, then this one takes the ksuba of the mother, and then this one takes the ksuba of their mother. Vim lav, cholikim b'sham. And if not, they go ahead and they divide it evenly. So my lab hakimifli, the mar savar achas b'chai achas b'maisa yeshem ksubas ben dichrin, that we'd say that Rabbi Shimon holds that there is a ksubas ben dichrin. In other words, when we say each one collects a ksuba, and there's one collects the mother's 200 zuzah, one collects the ksubas ben dichrin. But mar savar achas b'chai achas b'maisa ein ksubas ben dichrin. And the other one holds that the Tanna Kama would say that there is no ksubas ben dichrin, according to the Tanna Kama. So Gemara says, "Lo, everyone holds there is a ksus ben dichrin. They would accept in this case, right? And we're not cheshly in suye. And the hacha b'dinar mekarka kamiflagi. Over here, maybe we're talking about whether that meiser dinar can be land or has to be land. Mar savar mekarka. One holds that dafka the mekarka yes, metalfali no, but move objects no. Mar savar afilu metalfali. Another holds that no, even move objects could be the meiser dinar. And how can we say this? Well, tonight we learn in the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon Aimer, afilu yesham nechasim shein lam achrayis, einan klum ad sheyesham nechasim sheish lam achrayis. Even if you have movable objects, that's not considered to be the meiser dinar, and that's not the extra amount, right? You need to have nechasim that have achrayis, right? Yes, yes, y'all shtei ksuvas dinar, right? In other words, you have to have basically land above the value of the two ksubas. So you can't say that's the because everyone holds that which you say meiser dinar, actually, which is going to be the Mishnah, we'll get to Mitzvah Shem on Thursday, but that's what's talking about. There has to be a land which is over the two ksubas. Over here, we're talking about whether the dinar can be meshubah to something else, such as the ksuba of the second wife. One holds that dafka has to be the bnei chayrin, yes, but it can't be meshubah. It can't be like the ksuba. And then Rabbi Shimon would say, no, I feel meshubadi, even meshubadi. See, hachi, Rabbi Shimon, Aimer im yesh sham meiser dinar. So that which Rabbi Shimon says im yesh sham meiser dinar, he should have said not kevan sheyesh sham meiser dinar, right? He should have said because, right? Since there was a meiser dinar, that's when the ksus b'nichrin goes, triggers. So Ella b'pachas medina kamifli. Maybe they're arguing about something less than a dinar. The marsav dinar in pachas medina low. That you'd say that Tanna Kama holds the reason why it doesn't work because it's less than a dinar is the overage. But marsav afilu pachas medina. Another one says no, that even if it's less, then it would. But Rabbi Shimon dinar kamar. But Rabbi Shimon says beferish, right? If you look at the lashon of Rabbi Shimon, right? Rabbi Shimon over there in the Mishnah says, im yesham meiser dinar, right? So it says, if there's a meiser dinar. So if you want to say, okay, then you have to flip it around. So Tanna Kama masnisin nami dinar kamar, right? But the Tanna Kama of the next Mishnah, right, it holds that im yesh says you need a dinar. You can't say he's the one who says pachas mi dinar. Ella kihani trei lishnei kamai ve'epach. Rather, we can go ahead and say that which we said earlier, that the machlekes over there is whether items can be metaltlin or they could be used to somebody else, and that's considered to be meiser dinar. While Rabbi Shimon would say, no, the only meiser dinar has to be meiser dinar of karka, which is more which it has to be karka, and it can't be meshubadim. Or excuse me, it can't be metaltlin or pachas b'shem pruta. So that would be the machlokes between the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Shimon. And finally, Omar Marzutra. So it says Marzutra. So Omar Marzutra Meshedra Papa Hilchasa Achas b'chai v'achas b'maiso. Right? What is the conclusion? Achas b'chai v'achas b'maiso. What is the halacha there? Yesh lahen ksus b'dichrin. They have ksus b'dichrin. The ksuba nasa ma'isa lechaverta. And also, the ksuba is considered to be Meisel Chaverta. So in our situation, about the situation of 1,200, when the second one would be able to go ahead and collect their 200, and now the only way, since they already collected it, that loan, right, or that debt, that ksuba is considered to be the overage. So therefore, they already did the nachala portion of deraisa, right, because they paid a creditor, and therefore the ksuba's benichim can be collected completely 100% by the children of the first ones. Now. Right, I would say that if you would have said, right, that the halacha is right that there is a different, and we wouldn't have told Nasa Ma'aser Chaverta, I would have thought Ika Ma'aser Dina only if there's a Ma'aser Dina. Elo Liashminik Ksubas Nasa Ma'aser Chaverta. Why don't you just tell us the halacha is that the Ksuba Nasa Ma'aser Chaverta V'ani Adina? We know Mishum the Achas B'Chai Achas B'Ma'aser Yishtem Ksubas B'Dichron. We would have known that the whole halacha of Ksubas B'Dichron applies. Right? Why did you say it in the other order? Right? By telling us a stipulation of when it works, obviously we know that it works. Why did you have to tell us that it works and then afterwards tell us the stipulation? So where says no, pasha. If I would have just said that I would have thought let's say he married 3 women, and 2 of them died. So he had 2 sets of sons, right? The achas b'maisa, and then the father died. And the third wife, right, who was alive when he died, right, that normally she should be able to collect her ksuba. She only had daughters, so therefore her kids were never in the equation of a Yerusha. It was always going to be split between the 2. Mm-hmm. Maybe I would have thought that case, Flav Basirushi. And not they were not Basirusha over here, right? So therefore, in that case, I would have thought that it was different. But if they're both of them have sons, only 2 women, and the second one also had sons. Maybe I would think in this case, there would be no ksus ben dichron because of because I'm arguing, because now the second ones only end up with 200, while the first one ends up with a complete ksus ben dichron of 1,000. So Kamash Malon, that Kamash Malon, there is a ksus ben dichron, even in the case of this case of achas b'chayev, the achas b'moiso. All right, we'll stop here. Mitzvah Shem, I see tomorrow's daf and the next daf, they look to be a little bit shorter, so we should be able to make up some ground. Mitzvah Shem. So by the end of Friday, we'll hopefully be caught up, and then we'll have to deal with